Okay, everyone, how is everyone doing out there? We've got Laurie Singer back on the podcast, and for anyone who wants to know who Laurie Singer is, her career, and how she got into adventuring, go to podcast number 42 because this is her second time here, and today we're just going to talk about adventure. So, Laurie, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for swinging by, and you're coming over today because you've just finished an epic journey.
Yes, it was an epic journey, and it was strange because the last time I was here, I think I told you that somebody will tell me about an event, and then, with my ADHD, I'm like, oh, I'll do that. Sign me up for that. And then I sign up for it, and I think, wow, I should probably do some investigating and this to see what I'm in for. And so what I did was I did the Camino Santiago St. Francis Trail. And so it started in France, Saint-Jean, and then went over to Spain, Santiago, Spain.
And the last time we met, you were just getting ready for that.
I was.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't remember if at that time I had really done any investigating, but maybe your podcast jarred me into, I guess I better really start looking into that.
Well, it's 500 miles, 750 kilometers. I think that's no joke. That's a long way to go on foot.
I think it's just over 800. And it depends, too, because the book that I used, which is a great book, I have it here, it was very detailed. And it also gave you alternative routes. Like if you want to add and do the scenic, you can do that. But none of that is calculated into the final 800 kilometers, which comes out to 480 miles. But I did a lot of the alternatives, which I'm glad I did because you got to sightsee. And what else are you going to do? You hike all day or walk, whatever you want to call it, and get to town. You might as well just add a few more miles in, right?
And okay, so walk me through this. So, you're busy and successful in your day-to-day life here in Southern California. Life is good. And then a bunch of friends are like, let's do the Camino de Santiago this summer. Okay.
She knows that I'm typically up for anything. She's the one that asked me. Her name is Connie, and she is great at planning. I don't have to worry about, she looks into the plane tickets. She actually booked every night that we were going to stay. She figured out how far we were going to hike each day. So it was wonderful. And she also said, would you like to extend the trip? I'd like to go to Portugal and go to Porto. We can do a 4-hour e-bike ride and then go to... I'm like, sure, why not? Might as well. So she did all the planning, the trains, the shuttles, everything. But then I thought, I really should at least look into what the trail is and what it entails. I did do the packing part of it because I've been backpacking, so I know what to bring. But the more I started to look into it, I started to realize a lot of people go on this pilgrimage, because that's what it is, to find out more about themselves, or because they are going through something in their life that they're searching for answers. It's supposed to be a religious or spiritual experience. And I'm not sure if when I saw you that I had already watched the movie The Way with Martin Sheen.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I remember that. We talked about that.
We did talk about that. So I thought, oh, okay, so I should probably have some questions when I start this journey, and maybe I'll have the answers when I finish. The only question I could think of was I think I had mentioned I had been attacked by 4 dogs.
On your bicycle trip across the United States. Yeah, I remember that.
That got settled, and I was able to come up with an overwhelming amount of evidence against the owners of the dogs and how many people they had attacked and how the county hadn't done anything, and pointed out that they were not in compliance with the laws of Florida, the state laws. And so they put together a dangerous dog ordinance. They couldn't ignore me anymore. I wasn't going away. But they would not pay my medical bill, which was just a balance of $200, but it was more about the principle. And people said, Laurie, you won. They have a dangerous dog. Those dogs will not bother anybody. And I thought, yeah, but it's the principle. And so I thought, should I pursue this? I don't think I'm going to pursue it. I have 4 years, but I don't think I'm going to. that isn't even what happened during the trip. The trip was much.
Yeah, that happened just right at the end. It's too bad like that ruined the last bit of it because I remember you like that was on one of your last few
It
days.
was 3 days before the trip ended, which is ironic because 3 days before this trip ended, I got a parasite,
Oh, really?
but I was able to finish. Yeah, so maybe there's something about the 3 days at the end of my trips. I'm not really sure. I'll let you know after the next one.
There we go. So hold on. Let's go back to this
Sure.
Camino de Santiago. So your friend Connie is a logistics wizard. She manages all the heavy lifting. So where do you fly? Tell me the logistics of where you fly to and how you get to the start of this trip.
Okay, so
Because I want to really like break this down. Like I'm sure there's got to be people out there listening to this being like, how do you even do this trip, right?
Right. So we flew from LAX, I believe, to France. I'm not 100% sure. I can let you know about that. I actually brought my little itinerary just in case I was asked some specific questions on where I stayed. We took a shuttle from France to Saint Jean or Saint Jean, however you pronounce it. And we stayed one extra day there. And then we went over the Pyrenees and ended up in, we ended up in Santiago. And then from there, we went to Portugal and then back to Spain. We did Madrid and Barcelona. And then from Barcelona, we flew back to France and then to LAX.
Okay.
So that was the way.
Okay, so you take the shuttle down to Saint Jean or Saint Jean, and that's the starting point of the pilgrimage.
Yes.
And that's a small town. Where is it? It's just in southern
countryside, and it's just beautiful. And the people were so nice. And we walked around the next day. Some people leave the very next day, and I'm glad that we didn't. And we got to walk around and check out the town. We stayed in this little hostel that was very, very nice. And we had to stay in some hostels, but Connie was so good about making sure that even if we were in a hostel where we had to share a toilet with like 17 people and share showers with 17 people, we always had a room to ourselves or at least a drape with 2 separate beds, which was very nice.
That's helpful.
Oh, it was great. Yes, because some people think that, well, to make it a real pilgrimage, you have to stay in a hostel with like 200 people. And, you have to have a broken toilet and you have to have no toilet. And I'm like,
Maybe when you're 22, that's romantic, but that's no.
It's not going to work.
No, I'm right with you on that one.
I'm kind of germophobic that way.
Mm-hmm.
And snoring and coughing. You could hear the coughing even when we had our private room. And I just thought, this can't be good.
No. We had to do we did a trip one time in Taiwan, and we were doing this like hut to hut trek through the central Taiwan. And I remember one place we had to stay in these cabins, and there were so many people in the cabin, and it was so noisy and just not nice. So my camera guy and we just slept outside in our tents because we brought our tents with us just in case. But it's because you can I don't know, it just feels like you have more control in your tent and you can keep people away, manage the noise a little bit better. But it was so much more peaceful and relaxing than sleeping in a hostel or a cabin with, bunk beds or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
So why does the trail start in this town, Saint Jean?
I am not 100% sure. I know that my husband had got me a map and it just came yesterday, and it's pretty cool because it shows all the different trails that lead to Santiago. So there's many different pilgrimages that you could take that lead to Santiago. The people that were on our pilgrimage, they were starting in Saint Jean, and
that's like the last leg of it, right? Because I know like there's one trail that comes from Rome. There's another trail that comes from like somewhere in Switzerland. Like I know there's all these headways. And I think they all end in Saint Jean, and then from Saint Jean, everyone does the last leg together, right?
It seems that way. Or they start, what I found interesting is that a lot of people from Europe typically don't do the entire thing in one section. It's kind of doing the JMT, the John Muir Trail. People go up to the Sierra Mountains and they do sections of the JMT. So here I found that a lot of people will take holiday for 2 weeks and then they do sections within 2 weeks. And
Yeah, that's a smart way to do it because, it's just a lot of time, isn't it? It's just, yeah, for the average everyday folk, who's
65.
Exactly. Okay, so you get to Saint Jean. Are you nervous the night before you leave? Like, are there butterflies? Like, it's like, what the fuck am I doing? Or are you just sleeping like a baby and you're like, I'm ready?
Ready to go. Yes. Typically, that's the way I do. And I was very excited because I knew we had a big climb and I love climbing. So everybody kept talking about, well, you have to go over the Pyrenees. You're going over the Pyrenees. And I thought, okay, good. Let's go over the Pyrenees. And I was fine with all of that. Connie and I started off together, but I'm faster than her. So once I got to this one area where typically people will spend the night, so you can do it in sections, where you do the entire course, but maybe the first day you go 4 miles, or maybe you go 6 miles, depending on if there's places to stay. So one of the spots we stopped and had coffee and I waited for Connie. I waited for her for quite a while, and then we left again, and I would kind of get ahead, and then I would wait for her. This went on for maybe 3 days, and by the 4th day, I'm like, I'm up at 4:30. I don't think I'm going to wait till 7:30 in the morning to start. How about I just get all my stuff ready in the bathroom, and I got my food ready in there, my clothes ready in there, my coffee for the next day, and then she would get up at 6, and I would leave. So we didn't really spend any time together. And that's when I started having my experiences of meeting new people and being on my own and just kind of
absorbing. That's very interesting you said that, because actually traveling with someone else is really hard because you don't have the same rhythms of the day. You guys, you have energy ups and downs at different times of day. You want to eat at different times of day. Like I don't eat dinner, right? So people are always like, let's go out for dinner, or like, let's have a big dinner and all this. I'm like, no, like, that's not what I do. I eat during the day and then I stop. So I find it. And then when you're in a intense travel situation, I feel like all of that is somehow elevated or intensified.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that on day 3, you're just like, see ya.
I think I'm going to do this. And Connie's like, okay, I'm fine with that. And it actually worked out better, because then I would get there many hours before her, and I would either explore the city. I would always check into where we were going, if I was allowed an early check-in, whether that was an apartment, whatever the case may be. And then we just met up. I would either do my laundry and start hanging it up, or I would wait for her. It would depend whatever that happened in the day. It's funny because a lot of people that I met, they didn't even believe there was a Connie, because
this mythical Connie.
Because I always, you typically meet up with the same people. They start at the same time as you.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And I think, when you're traveling with someone else, it kind of isolates you or insulates you, and you guys just end up talking to each other all the time. And then when you're by yourself, people will come up and be like, hey, how you doing? Where you from? And then you get into that rhythm of meeting people, and it's much more social.
Yes.
But making that first step and going to Spain or France by yourself is the hard part, because you feel more comfortable when you have someone else with you. But then once you're there, it's like, ooh, I could be alone here and meet some more interesting people.
And it worked out. And, she got to meet people back in the back where she was, and I met different people where I was. And then it kind of unfolded from there. And what I mean by that is, well, the very first night, it's all about the cathedrals.
Break it down for me. Here we go.
Cathedrals. And like I said, a lot of people are doing this for different religious reasons or looking for answers in their life. And the night before, it was a very small town where we were, and they were having a mass, which I've never been to a mass. I'm Jewish. And so I said, yeah, I'll go to the mass. I want to experience everything on this trip.
I grew up Catholic. You're not missing much.
They said, well, it's a short mass. And at the I didn't understand a word he said anyway, because it was in a foreign language. And at the very end, he says, I'm going to do a blessing for the pilgrims. And I thought, oh, that's nice. So we all stepped forward. There's like 30 of us. And he said, who speaks English? And I thought, well, I raised my hand, and 10 other people raised our hand. And he looks at me and he goes, you come up here with me. And I'm Oh, me with the Jewish star on my neck? Okay, I'll come up there. I had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm standing next to the priest, and he kind of said, which I understood. He gave me a piece of paper. I'm going to read this in a different language. Then you read, wait for a pause. I'll read again. Then you read. So he did the blessing in Latin, and I read it in English.
Oh, well, that's nice.
It was great.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience. Like, wow, this is going to be a cool trip. I wasn't expecting that. And Connie said to me, "You did a really good job."
Well, that's nice.
Thank you. So that was it. So then
It's funny that organized religion is a little bit terrifying, but then getting a blessing every now and then kind of makes you feel nice.
It was nice. And I got a couple of those along the way, which was really like out of nowhere. And it really did mean a lot to me. When I left for the trip, it was Mother's Day. So the day before, my daughter had gotten me a necklace with 3 of my kids' names on it. And my husband gave me a Star of David. And my grandsons, I asked them to paint 2 rocks for me that I would carry with me, because I heard, well, along the way, you can leave a momentum underneath a cross or wherever you like, a pile. So I had the rocks with me. And throughout the course, I thought, I just don't feel comfortable leaving it at a cross. I think I'm going to just keep the rocks with me. And I did. I kept them with me. So I felt like I had my entire family with me.
Oh, that's very sweet.
It was really cool, the entire journey. And that's the way I really felt. And while I was hiking, people say walking, but trust me, there's a lot of hiking in there.
A lot of up and
Yes, and there's a lot of rough terrain. It's not like it's on asphalt, which I think some of the routes in the Camino are on asphalt. This was not all on asphalt. There was a lot of rugged terrain.
Well, that's great. That's quite exciting because
That's good.
because walking on a road is miserable. It's like why am I
500 miles on a road?
Yeah, it's like why am I not in a car? But when you're off-road, when you're in the mountains, when you're on a little dirt path, it's much more exciting.
It's great and beautiful. So I'm out there and I kept thinking, how can I bring my grandkids with me? How can I get everybody out here? How can I get them to do a section of the Camino? So that was going through my mind. And also just seeing the beautiful country and coming into these villages. And I would think, my husband's name is Bob, and I would say, Bob would love this. Bob would love this. And then I'd get to a really hard section, and I'd say, Bob would hate this. Bob would hate this.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. But by about the 4th or 5th day, I was waiting in line to do laundry at one of our hostels, and this woman comes out, and she says, "Oh, I'm next." And I said, "Oh, great. Let me give you my number, and I'll go after you." So then we got to talking, and she lived in Italy, but originally from Argentina. She was in her 50s, or is in her 50s, I should say. And the next day was an 18-mile day. And I said, "What time do you leave?" And she said, "Oh, I leave very early. I leave about 6 in the morning." I said, "Well, I'll leave with you if that's okay." She said, yes. Well, that was the starting of an amazing friendship. And we started walking together, and she's very religious. And she told me she was there because I asked about her necklace. And she said, "Well, my son died 4.5 years ago."
Oh, wow.
Yes. So then I said, "Oh, tell me what happened." And she told me that she was living in Spain, and he was good at the violin. He was 9 years old. So they moved to Italy, where her husband's family is from. And he died 6 months later of a brain aneurysm, suddenly in her arms. That was it. Let out a big scream, and he was dead.
Oh, my God.
It was awful, awful. So then we cried, and I told her about my son who passed away of cancer, and we just instantly bonded and walked together or hiked together. I would catch her because she would leave earlier than I would catch her. She said, "Oh, you make me walk faster." And then we would end up, we just did a lot together. It was just an amazing experience to find her out of all those people, And then another interesting thing happened. I met this other, I guess, man, he's in he's 63. We started talking early in the morning, and he was telling me his story about how he raised his 2 boys. His wife was alcoholic and left the family. And I said, "Oh, that's strange, because my mom was alcoholic and addicted to drugs, and my dad raised us." So now we have this other commonality, this bond that I've met this other person, and we've stayed in touch, and we did a lot together. So it was just interesting the way it felt.
It's almost like every day on the trip you were doing a podcast with a new guest.
And he said, I feel like I was in therapy. And I said, well, I am a therapist. And he said, really? Because so that was interesting. And then one other gentleman that I met was from Croatia. And we started talking, and he was there in search for answers because he's gay and very difficult being gay in Croatia, and that his partner is in the political field, and so they can't
be public. Mm-hmm.
So we had dinner together one night, and I told him about my son, and he just started crying. And I said, are you okay? And he said, well, I'm the exact same age as your son would have been.
Oh, wow.
So now we have another common thread. And I became very close to these three people that we all had something in common with. And so I'm thinking, so there is meaning to this trip. So I think for me, the meaning was family, because it all comes down, for me, family. I had the necklace, I had the rocks. It was just, I didn't intend for it to be spiritual, and I'm not the most spiritual person, but having these things happen. And then also we went through this small town where there was a lot of nuns that were there in this monastery. And the nuns said to Glenn and I, we're going to have a gathering this evening where we're going to do some singing. And so we'd like for you to join us. So there was like 15 pilgrims in the town that came to join, and they all sang in different languages. And the English song that they sang was John Denver, Take Me Home, Country Road.
Well, that's a good one.
It was a good one. And then she went around and she touched everybody's head and gave a blessing. And before she did, I just said, I just want to let you know I'm Jewish, I'm not Catholic. And she said, that's okay, I'll say a special prayer for you.
Oh, that's nice.
It was very nice. So all these different, Ryan, it was just an amazing experience all the way around.
But so again, I think these kinds of trips are all about the people you meet, right?
Yes.
And I think that, and I'm glad that you met a really, truly, I think it's all about the connections you make along the way, right? I mean, it's about other people's stories.
Yes.
Yeah. And then a little bit about how you reflect on yourself after you hear those stories.
And how it relates to you. And, just very interesting. The guy that I met whose wife had left him, he was there to try and find answers from a relationship he had just recently broken up with, his partner. But what was even a little bit more interesting was that he said, where are you from? I said, California. He said, so am I. He said, Laguna Niguel. And I said, oh, what did you do? Well, he sold everything, quit his job, and is moving to Mallorca, Spain.
That sounds like a good life.
And I said, oh, what did you do in, where you're from Laguna Niguel? And he said, I was in real estate. And I thought, well, I'll just throw this name out there because I used to surf. I had done some surf trips in Fiji, and we surfed with this guy whose wife is now in real estate. Well, they work together. Oh, my God. He sent her a text. He sent her a picture of he and I together. So how strange is that? Yeah. That's wild. So how long were you on the trail for? So we did an average of 15 miles a day for 33 days straight. Holy cow. Yes. And does that mean you finished it? Like you did the entire journey? Yeah. I finished it. It was weird because on day 30, I think it was, I thought, hey, I just felt off today and I've been feeling so strong. And the day before I just did 20. I'm not sure what's going on with me. And I sent a text to one of my friends. And I said, I'm off today. And her answer was, well, that's what happens when you get older. And I was thinking, yeah, but I'm thinking something's not right. So the next day I said to Connie, I think that was day 32. I said, Connie, I think I'm just going to stay with you today because I know she's slower. Yeah. She goes, oh, yeah, stay with me. That's fine. So we stayed together. And then people said, oh, there really is a Connie. Finally. I can't believe you're hiking together. Yeah. And your alternative personality, you're schizophrenic, right? Connie doesn't exist. Connie. Yeah. So that night I thought, oh, there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. I just knew that something was off. I couldn't eat. I wasn't feeling well. And it was just tomorrow, the next day would be day 33. I would be done. And Connie said, I'm leaving at 3:30 in the morning because I want to get there at 9 in the morning. And I said, I'm not leaving at 3:30. And she said, I think you should just take a taxi. And I don't think, because she saw how I was. I said, I am not taking a taxi.
Not on the last day.
Not on the last day. This is not going to happen. And so I left at 5 in the morning, and we got there around the same time. I saw her right after she got her Compostela. And then the next day I went to the hospital.
Typical finish of trips for you. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. What did Connie get? You mentioned something, the Compostela.
Right. So you get a Compostela, which I got as well.
What's that?
So it's a certificate that you have to have your passport. You take along this passport that they stamp along the way, and you have to get like 2 stamps a day. And then they look at that, and it's the Pilgrim office. They look at that, and you are given a certificate with your name on it saying that you did however many miles that you did.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is nice.
I'm going to get that framed for sure.
Yeah, no, that's amazing that they keep track of you too.
Yes, it is amazing.
Yeah.
And interesting. It was, people kept saying the meseta, how everybody hates the meseta because you're totally exposed. And you go through miles of the meseta. I'm not sure. It's at least 100 miles probably.
What's the meseta?
It's a section in the, along the way that they say you have to look out for. It's getting, to Santiago. But you have to look out because you're totally exposed. It can be very hot. The scenery is supposed to be horrible. So we're all thinking, oh, the meseta. Everybody's talking about the meseta. But, we were very fortunate. It got maybe in the 80s. It wasn't that hot. The scenery was beautiful because we got there. It was springtime. So there was all these red poppies and barley and grain that were it was just beautiful.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Let's go back a little bit. So,
sure.
So you and Connie show up, and you're about to go on this 33-day, 15-mile-a-day adventure. Okay, so there are actual hostels and guest houses every night, no matter what. Like there was never a situation where it's like, oh, we have to sleep outside or we need a tent.
Because she made reservations.
Right.
She's the one that took care of it. Now, there were people that they said, well, I'm just going to go where I want to go. And, I only want to pay $8 or €8 a night. And that's where you're in these hostels, like 200 people, or not a working toilet, or wildcats, or whatever, is there. And some people, they didn't make those reservations, and you're in a small village. They would get to a town and say, hey, there's no vacancy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yes. Now I have to go another 3 miles and hope that there's something ahead. And I tried to look on the positive side and said, well, at least you don't have to hike as far the next day, right?
3-mile head start. But that's amazing that these villages are there along the way, and that they're used to having people come through and everything like that. And it's kind of like an expected traffic flow of pilgrims, right? I find that very.
They take credit cards.
Oh, wow.
So that was even more amazing.
Not having to carry cash.
No, you really don't have to carry that much cash at all.
That's very nice.
Yeah, and the small villages, I liked staying in the smaller villages. I mean, some of the big towns were really cool. Like Pamplona was really, that's the one where they do the bullfighting every year, the running of the bulls.
Right, in northern Spain.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent one day there, and we actually went for a self-guided tour in the bull ring itself.
Oh, wow.
And it was really, really a cool experience. And so we did that. I really liked Pamplona, and I liked Burgos, which was another big city that had this huge cathedral. That was really cool. So there was those are the ones that I liked that were a little bit bigger, and then you had to go out of. But mostly I like the smaller villages.
Mm-hmm. And food-wise, like, what were you eating along the way? Like, did you have to bring like a little lunch with you? Did you have breakfast at the hostel or the guest house? And then I guess you had dinners at the hostels and the guest houses too?
So I'm kind of maybe more like you. Food for me is a means to survival. I am not a foodie. Connie is a foodie. So for me, I made sure I had breakfast because I typically eat in the bathroom. The night before, I'd make sure I had a yogurt, dry cereal, and a banana.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you needed.
At dinner time, one thing about Spain, I felt like I was on an all-carb diet. You get so much bread with your meal that I started taking the bread with me. And then the next day for lunch, which I just needed fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take the crust of the bread and I would bring cheese with me and just have, cheese and bread crust.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got into town, sometimes I would have a bowl of soup or I would wait till later that night. Well, we ate early. We ate like at, 4 o'clock in the afternoon because that's just the way we did it, which I was grateful for. And I like my food very plain, which was great because they would accommodate me for that. They had a big selection, actually. Sometimes they didn't serve dinner, though, which you might have liked. They only served tapas, but tapas, you could make a meal out of tapas. They had like pork. The pork was actually really good, and I can eat that up until I wasn't feeling well. They had that. They had just little dishes that you could order because usually from 2 till about 8 o'clock at night, the restaurants are closed.
Right, of course, for the siesta, and then everyone goes out for dinner at 10 p.m. Yeah, which is ridiculous. Who eats at that time?
They do, I guess, but you have to remember it stays light till 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Europe's nice like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
It was cool. So they did have food. Sometimes, like if I didn't like what they were having and Connie was eating, I said, I'm just going to go back to the room and have some yogurt and cereal for dinner. I'm fine with that.
I think there's something to it. Like I've done a lot of treks as well, not as long as the one you've done. I usually do shorter ones, but there's something about the body being so exhausted and you just can't eat. Or just having a big meal just doesn't feel right because your body's so tired it can't digest that much food anyways. So just like little bits and meals, like instead of eating 3 meals a day, maybe you have like 5 smaller meals a day, right? Just like little bits and pieces. I find that's the best way to do these hiking trips.
And what's funny too is I started looking at the map. I would take a picture, in this book of the maps each day, and then I would have it with me. But I also had an app, the Ninja Camino app, which was incredible. The
Ninja Camino app.
So just make sure I'm on that red line. I'll get to wherever I need to go. If I deviate, I'm not on the track. And
well, that's great. So the app keeps you on the trail and then lets you know how far you have to get to the next village and things like that.
Pretty much, yeah. It does. But it's really what my friend from Italy, Glinda, taught me was, let's go 10 kilometers and then there's a coffee stop. So she liked to eat her breakfast there, have coffee. So she kind of taught me to relax a little bit. So when she only did a section of it. So when she was gone, which I cried, in Leon, saying goodbye to her was very sad. I looked for the coffee shop. So I would look at the map and say, okay, I'm starting at point A, and I could see there's a coffee shop at 5 kilometers, but that's too soon. I'm going to wait till 10. So I started mapping out my days to the coffee shops, and I would stop and have a cappuccino, but I wouldn't stay long because I had my cheese and bread crust. Where everybody else kind of had a croissant or they had a big breakfast, and they would say, hey, Laurie, you're leaving already? Yeah, I can't sit around like that. For me, I have to keep moving. It was enough for me to order a coffee and sit down. So it was really cool. I enjoyed that.
You're very, what am I trying to say? Like destination focused. Like you can't rest until you got to the place where you're going to sleep that night. Yeah. I'm totally like that too. Like I don't like taking breaks and extending my day longer than it has to be. I just want to get to the place and then I can do some laundry, relax, shower, have some food, go to bed early and then crush it again the next morning.
Some people, this one gal, Rachel, that I met from New Zealand, and she had to go like another 4 miles, and I had already been in my town, and I said, well, do you want to grab a bite to eat? I'm already here in my town. She said, yeah, I'll eat with you. And I thought, okay. So we had lunch. And then I said, well, I'm going to go back to the river because it's right here and I'll lay under a tree. And she said, I think I'll do that for an hour. So I could never do that.
Yeah.
I mean, never say never, but I can't see myself sitting down and having lunch, then going to a river, resting for an hour, and then do another 4 miles. I just would want to do the 4 miles.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So, the distances every day were about 15 miles. You've got these guest houses, okay, with food and everything along the way. So how big was your backpack? Like, how much stuff did you have to lug around with you every day?
So this was a good. I had probably too much in my backpack, which I'm sure I did, but I used almost everything in there because some of the hostels, I thought, I'm not using their blanket. I brought my own quilt, and I'm sleeping in my sleeping bag liner. I just didn't want to chance anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of bed bugs out there. Yeah.
But what we did was the first night over the Pyrenees, I had joined a Facebook page for people who did the Camino just to see what tips they had. I mean, there were some that were kind of like obvious, but others that I thought were good tips. And one was that IKEA sold a duffel bag, and they would send their stuff every night over. They have vans that drive. They will take your duffel bag from one place to the next.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
It is really amazing. And it cost, Connie and I split the cost where it was like €3 a person. That was it.
Per day?
Yes.
That's brilliant. So you can bring like a big duffel bag with a sleeping bag and your pajamas and your flip-flops, and then you don't have to carry that shit with you the next day.
Right. Well, I carried my flip-flops, but there was a lot of stuff that I didn't carry. We did it the first day to go over the Pyrenees, and this duffel bag from IKEA was like $10. It was amazing. And it worked out so well. I said, hey, do you want to just ship some of our stuff and keep our pack down to like 15 pounds or something? You know, we could carry necessities, because I always carry a first aid kit. I'm always going to carry my headlamp. You know, I've already learned from experience, you don't want to be anywhere without these things. And she said, yeah, let's do that. So we got to keep the weight down and just send whatever we wanted to ahead.
That's the best. That's really, really smart. You know, and that's the exact same way I make my TV shows. So what we do is like, for example, I walked across Switzerland a couple of years ago, and we had camera guys with us. So the camera guys would go village to village along the road.
Yeah.
And then I would go up and over the mountain, village to village. So we were on different routes, but at the end of the night, everything would be back where we needed to be. And then I could change out my clothes and wash some things. And I had all my creature comforts. And then when I'm back on the trail the next day, my pack is super small, so I can make good time and move quickly, right? And well, that's the thing. Like, it's the only way to do it, because there's so many people in Europe and North America too who think like you have to carry all your stuff, and this is terrible. Like, I grew up in Asia. Like I was a young adult living in Asia, and when you do these hiking trips in Tibet, when you do these trips in Nepal, you always have pack animals to carry your bags. You always have, you know, porters to carry stuff, right? And it contributes to the local economy. And these people are super fun to travel with because they've done the trip before. At night, you have a few beers, you get to hear their stories. Like it's beautiful. But carrying like 100 pounds on your back or 120 pounds, it's ridiculous. And for me, it ruins the entire trip, because then you're just talking about how sore your feet are all the time, and you're missing the entire adventure. But there is something to it, like, especially in the United States, there is something about this, like, oh, I did it unassisted. Like, and I can't handle that. I would much rather just send all the heavy stuff out and actually enjoy the journey for €3.
Yes, for €3, right? I mean, unbelievable. So that part was really, really good. I ended up... And just to go back to the food thing for a minute, if we stayed at a nicer hotel, my friend would want to have the buffet breakfast in the morning that didn't serve till 7:30.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I don't really care about the buffet breakfast. I loved starting in the dark and watching the sun come up. To me, that was the nicest time of the day. And so I would just, again, have my cereal and yogurt, and the buffet doesn't mean that much.
No, and it's a terrible way to start the day with a big, heavy buffet. Yeah. You're much better just getting out and getting going, getting the engine started.
What you want to do. She really enjoyed it. So, and she was going slower, so it didn't mean that much to her. To me, I like moving. So.
Was there anyone on the journey that was like trying to run it or trying to finish it as quickly as possible? Like, was there anyone who was like using it as like almost as a race?
Right. I saw somebody told me about that there was a runner there. And I briefly saw him one day. I didn't get a chance to talk with him. He was in running shorts and running shoes. He was an ultra runner, but I never caught his name. And I thought to myself, that's great that he's doing it. But you miss so much that way. Because the first time I attempted to do the JMT, I did like 175 miles of it. And we did 20 miles a day. And when I actually completed it a few years later, I thought, I don't remember seeing this. I don't remember seeing this, because you have to focus on getting from point A to point B, getting those miles in and finishing it. A lot of it you're doing when the sun goes down, because you have to finish it in a certain amount of time.
You know, and hiking at night and setting camp at night is miserable.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Almost as bad as the rain.
You're much, much better getting up early and getting it done, in the early part of the day.
Which we lucked out with the rain. And I thought about you when I was watching one of your documentaries about it's raining. No, it's not raining. It's raining. No, it's not raining. So you have to put on all that gear, and then you stop because you're sweating and it's stopped, and you have to take off all the gear. And, we had one day like that where it was putting gear on, taking gear off, putting gear on, taking gear off. But really the first day over the Pyrenees, it was actually hailing, and then it stopped. But the very last day, it rained almost the entire way into Santiago.
Oh, wow.
But you know what? That's one day out of 33. That is not bad at all.
No, I mean, you're blessed.
And the heat and no rain, I feel like we really...
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than... So you were referencing one of my motorcycle trips. I remember at Tough Rides India and there's nothing worse than riding with a wet, motorcycle jacket and pants, because they're super heavy. And the rain gets into your boots too. And it's absolutely miserable. So we have these rain suits on, right? But they're very hot. So if the rain is nice and cold and it's windy out, then they save your life. But in India, we were in Rajasthan, which is a desert, and it was hot, hot, hot. And then we would get these wicked thunderstorms in the summertime. And then we were constantly putting our rain suits on and off, because we'd have like an hour or two of like hot desert riding. So you have to take the rain suit off and open up the jacket to get some air. And then we'd come in and there'd be like a thunderstorm for 30 minutes and we'd have to put it back on. Yeah. Wild. I miss those motorcycle adventures. They're quite fun.
And you had those with you, because that's another thing. Every day I would think, okay, what's the weather going to be like? Because what am I going to bring with me? Should I ship it ahead?
Yeah, I mean, you get used to it, right? Like you should always have like a light rain jacket. You should always have like another base layer just in case, an extra pair of socks maybe. And then, like you said, your headlamp, a hat, and phone charger or whatever else you think you might need along the way, but just to be safe.
And it's interesting how you always meet people that aren't prepared.
Oh yeah, that's the number one. Yeah.
So one day it was pretty hot out, not too bad, and we had just climbed a mountain and we're headed down, and I passed by this one gal and I said, "Oh my gosh, your leg is bleeding."
It's just like, hey, did you know your leg is bleeding?
I'll wait till I get into where we're going and I'll clean it up. And it was really windy. We were on a dirt road. And I said, you should wait. Could really get an infection, because I've had staph infection. It can happen on a trail. And so I really don't have anything. I said, I have a first aid kit. Let's sit down over here in the shade and take care of your leg. And so I took care of her leg, and she was so thankful. And I had a knife. I always carry a knife and all this other stuff. And we fixed it up. And she was good to go. Gave her a couple ibuprofen. Okay. And I ran into her.
You were saving people on the trail.
I just try to help people out who don't think of bringing something. I was happy to use it. Oh, good. I brought it for a reason.
You know what though? Hold on. Just you're meeting people along the way and having these wonderful chats with them. So you're kind of giving them a therapy session, or at least they felt like. And then the people who you don't talk to, you end up bandaging up their legs and helping them on their way. So you really went there to be a savior, to help other people, maybe.
Maybe. She said, she was so funny, because somebody talked to me the next day. Oh, you helped whatever, Francesca. She told me you were her Camino angel. I said, oh, well, all I did really was clean her wound and give her some bandages. Yeah. But for her, it really did help her and hopefully saved her from getting an infection. I saw her a couple days later, and then I didn't see her after that. So I'm not sure if she made it or not. Another interesting fellow that I met, these two guys, we were coming out of Lyon. And Lyon, there is a lot of traffic. It's a very busy city. It's a fun city, but it's a busy city. And so I saw these two guys, walking very quickly. And I said, oh, do you mind if I just tag along with you? No, sure, go ahead. One spoke English, the other one didn't. They were both from Italy. The one guy, Daniel, and I, he was practicing his English, and we walked the whole day together. And it was really cool. But he said, well, where are you from? And I said, oh, I'm from the United States. What state? And I said, California. He goes, the land of opportunity.
Oh, wow.
So, and I said, is that what you think? And he said, yes, and movie stars and rich people.
Okay.
So, and he's in his mid to late 40s. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I said, so tell me why you think that. And we just got to talking. And his impression is that's what he's heard. That's what he's seen. And
did you destroy all of his stereotypes?
I tried not to. What I said was, Daniel, don't believe everything you hear. And we do have our problems. In California, we have a big homeless population, which we're trying to deal with. And he said, oh, we have homeless too. You have homeless? So he was surprised. So I think getting his perspective on what he idealized, I guess, from the United States. But we became very close. And then I didn't see him for about a week. And I ran into him in a small village at Daniel, Laurie. And we were so excited to see each other. I said, I thought you would be farther ahead because you were kind of on a date that you wanted to finish. He said, well, I got injured and I had to stay behind. And now here I am. I said, oh, that's great. I'm so glad you're feeling better. And then I didn't see him again. And then right after I got my Compostela in Santiago, there's Daniel.
Wow.
And he had just...
Oh, so you finished on the same day?
At the same time. And so we looked at each other, and it's almost like we almost started crying, and we hugged each other. We took a picture together. And I don't know why that was so meaningful to both of us, but it really was. That I think because we had seen each other, before halfway, and then we saw each other again, and then to see that we had actually finished was just something emotional, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I can't explain it.
Well, I think when you go through something like that, that's that physically and emotionally intense, the bonds you create with people are much stronger than the people you meet in everyday life, right? And then I think the way you're explaining it, the way I understand it, is over this 33-day journey, the people cycle in and out of your life again. So it's kind of like you're seeing friends, again and again along this journey, but you've all changed because you've all gone through this thing. And then when you finish together, it's really like a band of brothers or a band of sisters, right? It's like, there's something beyond friendship that kind of connects you. And it's like, it's kind of spiritual. Like it's really something, it's really strong.
Sharing, everybody's suffering at some point. I mean, it's beautiful. You're having a great time, but at some point you're suffering, and to share that with other people day after day and hear, oh, my blisters, how many do you have? I have 5. How many do you have? What are you using? It's all these different things and different ages too. I met this one, I guess, adult, she's 19, from the Netherlands, and she was just out there because she was a cashier at a supermarket and wasn't sure what she wanted to do with her life. And I said, well, I'll tell you this. I was a cashier for 11 years. And I think you should try something else. I was smart, unless you just want to stay there the rest of your life. But there's so many different things that you could do, and you're smart, and I think for her, that was what the Camino was about.
Finding her next life move. Yeah, that's a tough age. Yeah.
But to be out.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the thing about Europe. So I lived in Switzerland for a little bit during COVID. And the thing about this, the thing about Europe in the summertime is that the Dutch people go from their very flat Netherlands home. They all go south into the Pyrenees, into Switzerland, into Italy. So, and they go hiking in the mountains because they don't have them at home. So I would the place where I lived in the summers in Switzerland, I would go hiking every day, almost every day, and I would almost once or twice a week I would run into a Dutch, usually a man in his 20s, who was a student or maybe just finishing university, who was out to hike through the Alps, but they're all Dutch people. Like, they're not Belgian, they're not French. It's very, very strange how Dutch people head to the mountains to do tough hiking trips in the summer, but there's definitely like a thing there. That's nice though. So there you found a 19-year-old woman who was lost and confused and pondering next steps in life, and you gave her some advice.
Yeah, hopefully she'll take it. We'll see. And if not, maybe she's happy. Listen, some people are waitresses their whole life and they're happy, and that's okay if that's what they want. But I think that she's capable of more. So I'm hoping that she will. We'll see. I couldn't watch everybody finish the last day because I was so sick. And the gentleman who I was talking about earlier, Frank, he sent me a text and he said, everybody's finishing if you want to come and watch. I said, I can't move. I'm staying in my hotel. Because I knew it was. Oh, so the next day, Connie had signed us up because she's so good about. We stayed an extra day in Santiago, and there's the huge cathedral there. And she said, "I'm signing us up for a rooftop tour." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And then right after that, I need to go to the hospital. So I'm thinking, oh, rooftop tour. We go there, and we have to walk up all these steps, like 20 flights up to the rooftop, and it wasn't a deck. It was shingles on a roof.
That sounds a little dangerous.
Yes. So there's these big slate shingles. So everybody walks up there. There's no waiver to sign. You're not in the U.S. There's no waivers. There's nothing to hold on to. There's no preparation like, oh, you'll be walking on slates. Make sure you're careful. The winds are zipping through there. I'm already off balance because I'm really not feeling that great. And I thought, and I'm in my
flip-flops?
Kind of, yes. At least they have backs on them. And I'm walking very slowly because we have to go. You get to the top, you're on the slates. You have to walk down the slates, across the roof, back up the roof. I mean, the views were phenomenal, but I wasn't sure I was
That sounds a little sketchy.
I thought, where's my poles? Where's my hiking shoes?
Yeah, so that sounds terrifying. Literally, actually, to have survived the entire Camino and then to have to, and then to fall, off a 20-story building. And so what did you wear on the Camino? Because I think a lot of people would be confused about how to pack for a journey like that. So walk me through your clothing.
So what I was really excited about, which I wasn't even thinking I was going to wear, was my Gaiters. I've never worn Gaiters during any ultra run.
They're fantastic in the desert, especially in the desert, because the sand gets in everywhere.
It's windy and dusty and dirty. So Gaiters, I think, are key. I wore them every day. And I like to use the Ninja sock liners and then put my sock over it because it keeps the toes separated and it just makes it, you don't get any friction in there. And a lot of individuals were getting blisters in between their toes.
Yeah, because when you're doing those long treks, your toes all rub together all the time.
No, I never got a blister. I got a blister on my heel, which I never had before, but that's okay. Yeah. So I would definitely bring that. What I did use that I got from other hikers it's called Compeed Band-Aids. Have you heard of those?
No. What are they?
Gosh, I'll have to send you the link. So I'm going to actually use those for Kilimanjaro ahead of time because it prevents getting blisters. I talked to Glenda about it and she said, oh, you should put Compeed on, wrap it around your ankle or the heel before you even start, which I never knew because I never had a problem before with blisters, but the Compeed will last in the shower and when you get out for like 4 days.
Oh, really? So it's one wrap for 4 days, so you can switch them every 4 days?
Yes,
okay.
That is correct. And it's a Band-Aid. You can't put it on an open wound, but you can put it on a blister that hasn't popped, or when the blister does pop, it'll keep the skin on there and you can put it over that.
Okay.
And it's like medication and it's just, it's great. It really is.
you really got to take care of your heels on a trip like that.
You do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. And so I would suggest the sock liners, and then whatever socks something socks, smart wool.
Smart wool, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so I use that. And then I always wear hiking pants. I don't wear shorts because you don't know what's going to happen. You could run in the brush or whatever it is. Some people like to wear shorts. I like to wear hiking pants. I do have the kind that zip off, but I never went
for the full shorts. So did you wear like hiking boots, like proper boots that protect your ankle, or were you in like trail running shoes?
In low hiking boots. I like the low hiking boots, and oboes is what I use. Unfortunately, they changed. Why do people do that? Why do companies change? Like, you get used to certain specific shoe, whether it's a running shoe, hiking shoe, and then they change it.
Because you're the only one who bought it.
So they changed it, and that's when I got my first blisters. But I'll buy them again, and I'll just protect my heels with the Compeed. I like the low top. Some people like that. I don't like that for me. But I felt that the what's it called? That I just told you that I use that I never wore before, and you always use them.
The what?
I don't know. It goes on your shoe. It protects the rocks from getting in.
Oh, the Gaiters.
Yes, so the Gaiters. So some people like the high top running shoes. I don't. I felt like I got extra protection. Maybe that's false sense of security from the Gaiters. And I like to wear my Gaiter underneath my pant leg. Unless it's raining, then I'll put it over my pant leg. If it's raining, I'll put it over. I did hear that there's waterproof Gaiters also, but those must be kind of heavy, and I think they would sweat. I don't know if I would wear those.
So I have a pair of waterproof Gaiters, and I wear them mostly just on the desert trips, but also too one time we went to Papua New Guinea, and we were in a rainforest, like a jungle, for 2 weeks, and they were super helpful there too, because they keep like leeches off. And
so maybe I should get those for Kilimanjaro and just have an extra.
I think they're super. I mean, just because they're waterproof doesn't mean they should be heavy, because they're just like
water resistant, maybe.
Yeah, like I can show you actually. They're in my closet here. I'll show you after. But they're fantastic and water resistant and light and pretty breathable, but super helpful. And they just keep your pants clean too. Like, because the bottom of your pants just get filthy by day 3, 4, 5, and then you got to wear the same pants for 33 days.
Well, I was good about at least washing the bottoms of of my pants. And then I wore, just a tech shirt, the material that you never want to wear cotton anymore.
No, because it smells.
In the old days, that's all they had was cotton. Yeah. We used to bike in cotton T-shirts, but the tech shirts, I would wear a sleeveless shirt, and then I have the sun protector on my arms.
That's smart.
So I wore those every day, because then if I got too hot and the sun wasn't out, I could pull it down. And another thing which I really think is helpful is there are gloves that go on your hands, but they're the sun protecting gloves. They're not thick, and they cut off like right at the knuckle. And I think those are good. So between the gloves and the arm warmers, I was good.
That's really huge, because the number one danger you have on a trip like that is the sun, right? And for me, I do this strange thing when I hike. I have a backpack and I hold the things, but that exposes my hands. So whenever I was filming on TV and stuff, I would always have gloves. And again, those little runner gloves that are like for sun protection, not warm, just to protect you from the sun. And I would cut the fingers off because I couldn't find the ones that I really wanted. But I always hold my backpack like that. And the tops of my hands got really cooked once. And I was like, whoa, I need gloves if I'm going to be out in the sun for 8-10 hours a day for 2 weeks or something like that, or for you for 33 days. So yeah.
It really does help. And I also had, those buffs. Everybody's wearing buffs now. And if it got really hot, even though I was wearing a hat, sometimes my ears felt like they were getting burned. So I'd put the buff over my ears just to protect them. And if I ever came by water, and I learned this in ultra running, if you come by a stream, take your hat off, wet your hat, take your shirt off, wet your shirt, and put your shirt back on. It's going to dry anyway, but it feels so good. And you can wet your buff and keep it around your neck. Just anything to keep you cooler.
Was there any chance to like swim in a river or bathe in a river or anything like that along the journey? Or were you always around too many towns? Because that's like out in Tibet and all these other places, Nepal, like it's so nice. Like at the end of a long hiking day, to just jump in the river and wash up or just enjoy and then head back to camp or head back to the hotel?
I've done that on the JMT where we've jumped into the lakes. Here, I think I went into one river, but it was so rocky. Oh, no, I went into two. That's right. I went into two just to kind of get my feet. I didn't feel like taking my pants off and going in, in my underwear and all that. But we did have one hostel that we were staying in that had a really nice pool. And I did not to swim laps, but just to kind of cool off in. But it didn't seem like it was that type of water that you could really do that in.
Yeah. So what was kind of, I know that you're not a very spiritual person. You've mentioned that. And you just wanted to do the trip because you thought it'd be fun. And Connie caught you at the right moment and you said yes. But, what was the thing you're going to remember most from this journey? The physicality of it or the connections you made with the people along the trip?
I think for me, it ended up being spiritual with the connections I made. There was another time, that's why I am so blown away about how much meaning this trip actually gave me, and I wasn't expecting it. There was another time where I got to a bigger city, and we had a very steep climb at the end. And I was by myself, and I was sitting there, and this older man, probably in his 80s, came up to me, didn't speak English, but I knew he said pilgrim, and I said yes. And he just put his hands on my head and said a blessing.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
It was, every experience I had was just so amazing to me. And the connections to the people that I did make, I felt like there was just something, and how important family is to me. I mean, it was important before, even in my dedication in my first book, it talks about family and my grandkids, but this kind of solidified it, and how much time I want to spend not only doing, I know not everybody's, especially my family members,
Yes.
like I said to my younger daughter, I want to do this, and we can do the Portuguese Camino. It's not as far, and it'll just 2 weeks. And she's like, Mom, do we really have to hike and walk? Can't we just go to Europe?
It's not for everyone. Yeah.
And I thought, they don't really want to do it. So now what? So there's that part of me that's kind of a little bit disappointed that not everybody wants to share that experience with me.
Yeah, she's not ready for the enlightenment. Yeah, because I think it takes a while. I think in order to really want to just walk all the time, you really have to kind of go through something in life to want to come out the other side of that. Yeah.
Maybe something, you're right, or maybe something to think like, this isn't, when you're going through a difficult time on a hike or a walk and, or a run or a bike ride, whatever it is, and you think, I've suffered more than this. I can get through this. This is not the worst thing that I've gone through in my life. I'm going to get through it. And I know that when I do, there'll be something better on the other end, like the finish. What?
I think so for sure. And I also think that women on these endurance journeys have an extra layer of toughness that maybe men don't have. Because I've done a lot of these trips. I've climbed a lot of mountains around the world, and I don't know, there's some extra gear that some women have that I've noticed that are able to just push through really uncomfortable situations that a lot of men back out on. Like I was at Aconcagua a couple of years ago, which is the highest mountain in the Americas. It's in Argentina, and I remember on our summit day, it was midnight or 2 a.m. You wake up, you try to eat some food, and then but the first 4 or 5 hours of hiking, you're just in the dark and it's freezing, and you're at 20,000 feet and you're freezing cold, and you just got this little lamp, and it's just miserable. And I just remember all these men in the groups around us started just dropping out and going back to camp. But yeah.
Like that's an option.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not like if you don't feel comfortable. Yeah, and there's guides or porters and people like that that'll escort you back to make sure because at that altitude you don't fuck around if you're not feeling well. But I remember there was this group of 4 or 5 women that just powered through, and they had no experience climbing. They were first time. They were just, I think they were from Brazil. None of them were super athletes. They just put their heads down and pushed, and I was just like, wow, I'm staying with these women because they were just an inspiration that day. And I just always feel like I think there's an extra level of toughness that a lot of women bring to these kind of endurance trips.
I think so. I know that this one gentleman I think he was from Australia, and I was kind of put off by him on a previous, like a week before. It was a really tough climb, and I got to this place. I was feeling really strong and just powered it up. And I was talking to this other gentleman from Peru who was super nice, and the guy from Australia joined us. And during the conversation, I tried to make conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
He never looked at me. He wouldn't even acknowledge I was there. And I thought, well, this is really strange. I haven't had this happen for a really long time. And so about a week later, Connie and I were having dinner, and we had this great table. All the tables were taken, and here comes Simon. And he said, do you mind if I sit with you? And I thought, geez, really? And Connie said, well, as long as you're not bringing anybody else, because it's a very small table. Mm-hmm. So he was very nice, and he talked about climbing Kilimanjaro. Okay. And Connie said, well, I did it like 25 years ago. And I said, well, I'm actually going to hopefully complete it in August. Oh, that is such a hard climb. You are not going to believe how hard that is. I mean, I've heard that it's like having a baby, something, what he was saying, something how difficult it was. And I'm looking at him, and I thought, well, first of all, how do you know how it is?
That's a good question. Yeah.
But I didn't say anything. And then I'm not sure. Maybe for you it was really difficult. I'm not sure how it's going to be for me. Mm-hmm. But his experience and the way he was talking, and good luck, and how old are you, and all these different things that were a lot of negativity. But he did pay for almost all of our meals, so that was.
Yeah, he doesn't get to come to your table and shit on everything. Yeah. Some people have that negativity really locked inside, and it just touches every single experience in their life, and they don't even notice it after a while, but they pass it on to other people. And this seems like one of these people, right? And these are people you just have to cut out.
And what I should have said, but I was, I keep thinking to myself, okay, play nice. You're here on a journey. Because what I should have said, and what I thought about saying was, I met you a few days ago.
Yeah, you didn't call him out on that.
Yeah, no, I didn't. And because I thought, let it go. And I should have said, why didn't you look at me when I had asked you a question? Why did you ignore me? So I don't know, but it's okay. It is what it is. So he kind of planted the seed for me that good luck doing this,
Yeah.
At your age, good luck doing this.
He'll be fine. It'll be okay. We'll talk about Kilimanjaro in a bit. One other thing I wanted to ask you is, was there any one day that was particularly miserable for you on the Camino?
Yes. It was the day that I didn't know I started feeling bad the day before, right? And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all these cyclists start, because you can get a Compostela if you walk the last 100K, or if you ride a bicycle for 200K. Most of the time, the bicycles have a different route, but a last section of it, they were on the same.
Oh, that's a little messy.
Awful. I wasn't very nice that day. Because they wouldn't say anything like on your left, on your right. They would just zoom right by.
Yeah.
And I said, you should really, I would yell, you should say something. Why aren't you saying anything? And they said, well, I have a little bell. And I'm thinking, I can't.
And a lot of these people will also have headphones in, and they'll be listening to music and stuff like that. And then you can't hear, like in Switzerland, there's a huge problem in Switzerland between the hikers and the cyclists, especially in the mountains. So the mountain bikers, because the trails are super small and everyone has their own music in or whatever, and no one hears anyone else. So the bells don't work. And there's this massive rivalry. And I remember, because I walked across Switzerland, it's about 400 kilometers. And on every single sign, there was almost on every single trail sign, it was like, fuck bikers, fuck bikers, fuck bikers. Yeah, because all the hikers were just really pissed off that the cyclists were up there as well. But it's a beautiful place to be, so they have to find out some way to coexist.
They're gonna have to figure it out, but I think it makes it very dangerous. It makes it dangerous for the hikers who are in their own zone, even if you're not listening to music. Well, at least with my mind, there's always stuff going on.
Yeah.
And, you're thinking of something or you're enjoying the scenery.
Well, it's meditative, right? You like when you go hiking and when you're exerting yourself and when you're kind of isolated like this, it's a meditative thing. Like your mind is drifting on another platform somewhere else, right? You're not necessarily in the space you're existing in. Like I believe that anyways. And it's beautiful, but to be pulled back into reality by a bicyclist or a horn or a bell or someone telling you to fuck off or get the hell out of the way, like that's jarring.
To be on high alert.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, now we can't enjoy the scenery. Now we have to wait for a cyclist. And honestly, I don't think that you can enjoy the scenery on a bike as well as you can when you're hiking.
Mm-hmm.
Because you always have, you have to look out for potholes. You have to look out for rocks. How can you enjoy really what's going on? I don't know, especially on that. Like, I think if you're on a road bike, like when I went across the U.S., I could be in a bike lane or be on a road and look at the scenery. It wasn't that big a deal, right? But here you really have to pay attention to where you're going.
Because you're on a thin trail and
Some of it's narrow, but a lot of it can be as big as fire roads, but there's a lot of rocks. So you have to look out for that too.
Yeah. So the El Camino, the rules of the El Camino allow you to finish on bicycle. If you can do the last 100 miles or so.
You can't, like, we met a gal in Saint Jean who was going to go over the Pyrenees and hike for 3 days. And then she was renting a bike and she was going to bike to the end.
Oh, well, that seems easy.
Right. I mean, I don't know. But she said the bike was really heavy because it was, it was a pedal-assisted e-bike.
Right.
And so I can't imagine pushing those bikes through some of that terrain either. It just doesn't sound like fun to me. But you can hop in. If you're on a bike, you can start at 200 kilometers. I'm not sure where that's at, if it's Shohagan or where. Oh, it is Shohagan, actually, because that's a halfway point, and it's 400 kilometers. I mean, 800. No, it wouldn't be. Anyway, don't listen to me. It's at 200 kilometers. You can rent a bike or have your bike shipped, and you can go all the way to Santiago and get the Compostela, the same one that we got. Or you can start at it's Leon and do the last 100 kilometers by foot and still get the Compostela.
Oh, well, that's...
It doesn't say, it'll say on your Compostela how far you went. Like mine says my name and...
Oh, well, that's nice. A little bit of differentiation, right, between this.
But it is nice.
No, that's your badge of honor. I mean, like, It's like, oh, you didn't cycle. Like, I fucking walked it. Like, that's the toughness.
I will frame it.
So, would you do the trip again?
I would do a different route. I'm trying to figure out what route my family can do. Could they do the Portugal route? Because if they could, I would go back. And who wants to do it? Like maybe my younger daughter doesn't want to do it and she wants to meet us in Santiago or something like that. So I'm thinking, how can I bring my family to experience some of that and to see Europe?
Is there a trail in the United States that you could suggest would be like a decent warm-up for the Camino de Santiago? And then would you be able to take your family out for 2-3 days of a U.S. trip and then be like, okay, guys, you want to do this for 30 days next? Like that
We're doing it for 30. The Portugal one is only 2 weeks long.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So it might be doable. And then if we do a rest day, maybe we do it in 17 days. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look at it. But the younger one, the 6-year-old, I FaceTime the boys, I said, I really want to take you guys and I want to do this. And the 6-year goes, Grandma, wait till I'm 10.
At least, right?
Like he knows what 10 is.
Yeah. By 10, I'll be ready.
But that's actually good. I think the older grandson could do it because I take him hiking and we camp together. So I don't think he'd have a problem. But the other family members, I'd have to really take it easy.
The thing that I've always noticed is when you go hiking or climbing with people, and I think you and I are a little bit in the same spirit where we just turn off the brain and go.
Yeah.
And I see that in you. Like we have this in common, but a lot of people don't do that. And a lot of people will spend the whole day asking why. And this is a killer. So whenever I'm looking for hiking partners or trekking partners or whatever, or climbing partners, I'm always waiting to try to figure out if they're a why person or a turning the brain off person, because it's gonna hurt. There's gonna be blisters.
Yes.
You're gonna have days where you don't want to do the trip or whatever, but you just have to turn off the brain and fucking go. And there's so many people who can't do that, and you really have to avoid them if you really want to do these adventures, because the worst thing in the world is to be leaving at 6 o'clock and being like, why are we doing this? Like, what's the or should we get a bike today? And it's like, no, we're doing it on foot. We came here to do this on foot. Like, just stop asking questions. It's time to walk, right?
Yes, that I have a feeling is going to be a problem with. And that's where I was thinking, okay, so maybe just 2 or 3 family members, or maybe just my older grandson, and he and I do it. And then we meet up with everybody somewhere.
That would be nice, right? At the end.
I'm thinking, because not everybody is going to want to, and they're not going to enjoy it.
And they're not going to feel the same level of satisfaction that you felt. And it's so hard to share that with people. Because I've always wanted to try to bring people with me on some of these adventures, and it's amazing how many people just don't appreciate it the way I do. And I was naive at the beginning too. I was like, everyone has to love this. And then it's like, no, like, yeah. And it's amazing how many people are just like, no, this isn't for me or whatever. And you really have to know that before you want to set out on like a 30-day journey with someone.
And, I had people say to me, well, why didn't you take a rest day? And I said, well, why would I? I mean, what am I supposed to do on the rest day?
Yeah, think about the next day that you have to walk.
I mean, to me, the perfect, and this is what happened. Like you said, well, Laurie, one adventure like this is going to build on where you're going to want to do more. And I think that did happen with the bike ride, because I loved getting up every day and having to ride 60 or 80 miles. I mean, I loved it. I mean, what better way to spend the day?
Yeah.
And that was the same with this, getting up and putting on my clothes, putting on my backpack, and just going. How lucky is that?
And it has its own rhythm to it, and you get used to it, and you don't need a rest day.
Yeah.
Because and again, it's meditative. So when you're on the trail, that's your happy place. And physically you can do it. So it's not like you're sprinting.
Yeah.
Like, you're walking, you're enjoying, you're in nature. Like, it's therapeutic. So why do you need a rest day from that? I'm the same way. I just want to go. Yeah. But not a lot of people agree.
So how do you, right. And I think I mentioned this before. It's like when I did my first 50-mile run on Catalina Island, and I'd already done 1 or 2 Ironmans, I can't remember. And my older daughter went with me. And so we're sitting there. We had gotten there early, and another boat pulled up to let up other 50-mile runners. And I said to my daughter, oh my gosh, these, they're kind of strange looking. And Jackie looks at me and she goes,
you look the same.
And I said, oh, she's great. Like,
yeah. Yeah. And now it's just morphed into even more adventures and even more adventures. So would you recommend this trip to other people? Like, because now that you've done it and you know how physical it is, and you know kind of how difficult things can be, would you recommend it to friends? And I mean, I know you're thinking about something with your family, but if you met other friends or other runners that you've run with in the past, like, would you say, hey, you gotta do this? I just finished it.
I would definitely recommend it. I would say it's much different than backpacking, of course, right? I would say figure out ahead of time if you want to stay in hostels, because if you're okay with sleeping with 20, 25 people, male and female, people, coughing, farting, passing germs, turning on the light at 4 a.m, go for it. But if you don't, then plan your trip out ahead. And I would be happy to share my itinerary that Connie put together. Great.
And there are better accommodations along the way.
Better accommodations. And I would say make sure that you have the time to do it, because anything can happen, as you know, right? But make sure that you have the time. I'd say 33 days is good. If you want to take longer. That's harder for some people to do. But I would recommend, it's different. It's just so different than any other hiking trip I've been on.
And is that because it was in Europe versus, the American journeys that you've been on? Or do you think that European angle made it more exotic or more fun? Or you just think there was a spiritual element to it that some of your road racing or some of your running doesn't have?
I think it was a combination, because to see a church that's 800 years old was really incredible, and to see the irrigation systems that are like 1,000 years old, so rudimentary that they're still using the same irrigation. I mean, that's a lot of history. So I think the European historical part of it is big. I think talking, like you said, to people from the area. I met a guy from Ireland, and we were talking. This is like his 10th Camino. And I said, oh, your 10th Camino. Have you thought about doing other... Have you thought about doing something? There's a big world out there.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm not sure. My dad never even left the village we grew up in. So he feels like he's adventurous. Actually, I think he's done the same Camino 10 times. Yeah. It's not even a different one. And so I said, well, what about going to the United States? We have so many different hikes. Oh, I would never go there.
Oh, really? It's too far?
You go there. Oh, you have too many killings there. People get killed all the time there. And I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, your guns, they kill a lot of people. Yeah, that's true. Although I'm not sure if it happens in the Sierras so much, or if you're on a trail, although I think there was one recently. I think you would have to worry more about bears. But so his comfort zone was going back and doing the same. I don't know if I would do that, like for 10 times.
It's a lot. Maybe he was, maybe he was really trying to find something, but that was his comfort zone, right? So at least,
his comfort zone.
Yeah. So at least he's still doing it, and he's outdoors, and he's
outdoor, and that's what I was thinking. At least he's outdoors. Wow, you must really know the trail.
Yeah. You can do it blindfolded.
So I personally wouldn't do the same one again. Unless one of my family wanted to do it, I would be more than happy to. If they wanted to do a section of it, I would say, what section, would I do, and do I think that they should do as well? And I would highly recommend.
It would be nice, actually. What you could do with your family is, if you were to do the Camino again or do a different version of it, is you could set up so your family meets you every 3 or 4 days at a different place along the way, so they can see the progression of how you're doing it. But then they can go back to a city, or they can go and see some tourist sites with your husband or something like that. And then they just reconnect with you bits and pieces, so that they can see that, oh my God, she's really moving and progressing. And then it'll get in their minds, because they're not at the same place you are. But that could be like a nice little warm up.
Not a bad idea, especially if, like, let's say one or two of the family members wanted to go just to Burgos, because Burgos is a nice, or Pamplona. We could meet in Pamplona, and then Pamplona, they could go to Burgos, and then we could always end the trip there or whatever. There's plenty of things to do. So that's not a bad way to do it.
I'm going to blow your mind. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. I've been talking to you now for quite a while. This is our second podcast together. I think you would love to do the Via Alpina in Switzerland. Now, the Via Alpina is the number 1 trail. They came up with it in the 90s, I think, where they just connected a bunch of trails in Switzerland. Anyways, you go from the east in Vaduz in Liechtenstein, which is on the border with Austria, and you go right through the Alps, not the southern Alps in Switzerland. It's kind of like through the middle part of the country. And then you finish on Lake Geneva in Montreux. And it's not a holy trip in the same way the Camino de Santiago is, but it's visually spectacular. And there are places to sleep every night. So you kind of go up into the mountains and then down and stay in the village. And then, of course, you're in Switzerland. And there's a lot of beautiful little villages, a lot of beautiful towns, and tons of tourist things to see. So one thing you could do, but it's very hilly. I think there's more than 10,000 meters of elevation change. It's like climbing Everest, across Switzerland in the ups and downs. But it's visually stunning, and that could be a trip where you do the hard work, and your family meets you at each village. Yeah, Montreux is beautiful. Lake Geneva is amazing. So that could be one where you're doing the hard work, and then your family is enjoying Switzerland and catching up with you in different little villages. Because Because that's how we did we filmed it, right? So the camera guys were driving village to village. One camera guy was with me. Yeah. It's spectacular though. Like, and it's very physically, challenging. Yeah.
And I've got to get these things in because, time's running out. I got to get the hard stuff done.
Time is ticking for sure. Yeah. But I'm so glad that you had that experience and now you're making me want to try it. I think that's fantastic.
But
Yeah.
I really think you would love it. And I would be happy to send you the itinerary we had.
Yeah.
You might want to go farther. I think for me, it was good that we didn't because I have a tendency to push myself. And so I might have started too fast in the beginning and then it wouldn't, who knows what would have happened at the end.
How do you go further though? Because the end is the end, right? Like,
well, go further each day and then finish instead of 33 days, you finish in 28 days, or you finish in 25 days. And that's something you might want to do.
But that pushes it up to like 20 miles a day. It's like 30 plus kilometers. That's a lot.
So you just have to be prepared that when you get to town, it might be 1 or 2 when you get there.
Yeah.
So now what do you do?
Oh, that's the best. Then you go down to the stream, you take your boots off.
Or you get to walk around the town, or you say, okay, who has the, what are they, the tapas, because dinner's not going to be ready, or whatever it is. Or you go see the sights, the churches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice when you've done like 6 or 8 hours of hard walking and it's only like 2 p.m. and you can pull in, like, I love that feeling. And then you can ease into your evening.
Yeah, you could wash your clothes out of the sink. You dry everything up. You bring your little clothespins. You have your clothes drying. That's what I thought was good too. So when I finished earlier in the afternoon, like at 2, and I would wash my clothes, everything dries there. The next day, everything's dry.
It's because there's no moisture in the air. Yeah. Yeah. I remember we were doing this hiking trip through the desert and we were trying to wash some clothes and stuff like that. But our water was very valuable. We were in the middle of the desert, so they asked us not to do that too much. But we were just trying to like wash a little, and the stuff would be dry, like socks, like stuff would be dry in like 10 minutes. Okay, so the Camino de Santiago is your first massive hiking trip, and it 33 days, 800 kilometers, almost 500 miles. This is your entry point into this kind of like overland journey. So would you say now you have the bug?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I definitely have the bug. I am trying to figure out what vacation my husband wants to go on and when, so I can plan my next long one without him, because I figure, okay, I got to do something with him that's on his level. And then what am I going to do after that? Because I can't stop.
Yeah. Then you can't just leave him at home.
No. Well, I can leave him at home after I vacation with them.
Right. Let's go on a nice vacation and then you go home so I can do something really tough and nasty. And the next tough and nasty thing you have planned is what?
The Kilimanjaro is the next. Now, he is coming with me. I don't know if I told you. He's coming with me to Africa. And so what I decided was, so this is interesting because it's similar to what you were talking about in a way. We're flying to Switzerland, and then from there we're going to Africa, and we're just spending the night there. And we'll be together, I believe it's the first 5 days, and then I go on my journey to climb Kilimanjaro, which I believe is 6 days, and then I come down. So I'll meet back up with him on the 7th day. So I got him a tour guide, and he's going to be doing safaris.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. Well, so it's kind of what you talked about. He's going to be doing safaris while I'm hopefully making it to the summit of Kilimanjaro. Then we meet back up again, and then we're going to do like 2 or 3 days of safaris, and then he and I are flying to Rwanda together.
Oh, for the gorillas?
Yeah. I wasn't going to do it, but I talked to a few people.
You have to.
That's what they said. You have to do it.
I made an episode of one of my TV shows. I'll send you the link. It was in Uganda, right on the border with Rwanda and the Congo, and we did a gorilla trek through the Bwindi National Park. Okay. And there's a few ways to do it. Like, you can be part of a group and you kind of are in the park, but then you could also do like a private tour and pay a little extra, which is what we did because we were filming. And we did like this 4 or 5 hour trip deep into and we found this family that they had been tracking.
Yes, that's what they're
yeah. And it was just us. It was me and my camera guys and this family of gorillas. And there was this big silverback protecting them all in between us and them. And It was probably one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Yeah, you have to do it. Yeah, they're magical. These gorillas. Yeah, and you're up at altitude. You're in you're in a jungle, but it's like 3,000 meters above like 10,000 feet above sea level, and that's where they live because it's cool in the evening and it's kind of warm during the day, and that's where their food is and stuff like that. And it's just amazing. I'll send you the episode. It was pretty powerful, I think. Yeah.
What really convinced me of it was I was at this function for a children's hospital for people that donate money, and there was these two sisters that were sitting next to me, and they were like 80 and 83, and they said, "Oh, we're going back to Africa again in August." And I said, "Oh." She said, "Yeah, we're going back to see the gorillas again. We've done it 5 times."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Oh my gosh, well, so you recommend it?" She said, "Yeah, you have to do it." And I'm thinking, okay, these women are in their 80s and they're still doing it, so I have to do it.
At least, right? At least. Okay, so how did this idea of Kilimanjaro come up, and who are you going with? And do you have any questions? Because I've done it, and I can kind of walk you through the day by day if you want.
Ryan, how do you think it came about that I am going to Kilimanjaro?
One of your friends said, "Hey, I'm going to go to Kilimanjaro. Do you want to go?" And you just said yes. There's a pattern of behavior. Yeah.
It's called impulsivity.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's how the best things get done.
I think so.
If you have to sit around and think about it too much, you always talk yourself out of it.
Be where I'm at if I sat around and created all this anxiety and procrastinated. I'm sure there's bad with the good, but this is what's happening. So yeah, somebody asked me if I wanted to go. It was about a year ago. Again, she did all the research. I met her on a bike ride in Oregon, and we don't really know each other, but I met her and she said, something that I want to do is Kilimanjaro. I said, I really want to do Kilimanjaro. So she put this trip together, and it was with the company Worldwide Adventures, and didn't do much research, of course, until recently. I'm like, oh, they're very reputable. I did talk to the guy, and he's had a lot of success and sent me the itinerary, and he's actually he fixed everything for Bob so he can go on his tour. Very, very, really nice company. They've been around for 40 years. So I thought, okay, they've got to.
They're not going to kidnap your husband.
No. And I want them to, I'm more concerned about, I just want to be able to acclimate. I know I'm going to be uncomfortable, but to what point do I say, if it's not going to work, you're going down,
So
it's my biggest fear, honestly. It's not about the hiking, not about the camping. I love all that.
Mm-hmm. It's all in your head all the time. So it's really all in your head all the time. So honestly, if you just go slow.
Yeah.
So first of all, altitude sickness, I like to think of it. I actually like to think of your body at altitude is kind of like a submarine under the water, because your body's kind of like protecting you from the dangers outside, which is the water.
Yeah.
And altitude sickness is like when you get one crack in the submarine and then all the nastiness flows inside and just tears you apart and destroys you, and then you can't climb anymore, right? So your body is like your body's kind of like a temple, and any little chink in your armor, the altitude sickness will get in there and mess you up. So if you have too much stress in your life, if you're too worried or anxious about something else while you're on the mountain, like there's definitely like a calmness and a Zen mentality that will help you a lot at altitude. And then if you do start to get a headache or you do start to feel a little bit rough, not to let it spiral.
Right.
So, okay, I'm not feeling well. I may or may not have altitude sickness, but I'm not going to freak out. What do I need to do? I need to rest. Okay, I'm going to sit down. Okay, what else should I do? Okay, hydrate. I haven't had water for a while. Do I need electrolytes? I have these medical electrolytes that are fantastic. And I used to get them in China because I lived in China. And I used to travel with them all around the world. And they were like Gatorade times 10, and I would take one in the morning because you always wake up dry, especially at altitude. And then I would always take one at the end of the hiking day. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm not a medical doctor, but it helped me stay hydrated. Yeah. And yeah, I think, you can order them. Yeah. much cheaper. But yeah, so just getting these, stay away from this shit they have in the grocery store. These little pill, just
it's a liquid IV.
Yeah, those are good too.
But this is better.
I think so. Like it's the kind of stuff that your doctor would give you if you had diarrhea, or if you were losing a lot of liquids, they would give you these kinds of electrolytes. Yeah, and I found them super helpful. So I would take these at least once a day on the mountain and stuff like that, and it would just help me. And also too, I also found that having water, I have these like Nalgene water things those are really great. I used to have a Camelback. Yeah, because the Camelback will actually freeze, and the tube will actually freeze. Kilimanjaro is pretty temperate. The temperature's it's okay until like the last day where you do the summit, when you're up really high. But the rest of the trip, it gets cold at night, but it's not that bad. The last day is quite cold, but yeah, your Camelback can freeze, and that little tube that comes around, and that whole thing can freeze, and then of course you're hiking and you don't have any water. So I switched from that to bottles. So I really like the bottles.
I like the bottles because it makes me stop and drink, and I make sure that I drink.
Yeah.
There's that part. But I actually, now that I think about it, I think about when I got really sick from altitude. I had the swelling of the brain where I had to go again to the hospital. But I think it was because I was doing the 20 miles a day. And then what the game changer was the Diamox, of course. Since I was on the Diamox, I've gone back. I've done the JMT. I've done, Langley every year, which we're going to do again. And it's just over 14. It's not like it's 19,000 feet, but still going at a slower pace. I think you're right about that, and trying to think positive, I guess that will help. I did watch the documentaries, and looking at what the itinerary is for this, we're going to go very slow. We're going to go like 1 mile an hour.
So Kilimanjaro is an industry. So you will see thousands of people climbing this mountain. But you'll meet some great people at camp, and we did as well. And we were filming, so I can show you yeah, it's good. I'll send you the Uganda episode and the Tanzania episode. But you meet people on the trail, but people aren't too chatty on the trail because everyone's just trying to breathe. But then at camp, everyone like relaxes and eats, and then you start chatting with people and stuff like that. And the other thing too is you will see massive variations of luxury on this trip. So you will see people sharing a tent, and going on a super big budget. And then you will see these luxury camps where like they have like their own like dining tent. Yeah. And they bring
even like, silver platter or something.
Yeah, and they'll even bring their own toilets, like for the proper sit down toilets. So you don't have to use the squatters, at the camps, which are pretty tough, and pretty nasty. So, you'll see a wide range of options for quality and for comfort. But at the end of the day, it's not too bad. One thing I highly recommend is you definitely need a sleeping pad.
Yeah.
Because it's quite cold and that keeps you off the ground. And you definitely need your own tent, because sometimes they'll try to pair you
Make sure of that.
Yeah. And that's terrible, because then you're with someone else and they cough, they sneeze, and then every time they move, in order to really sleep well at night, especially at altitude, it's really helpful just to kind of be on your own.
The poor guy, I've been bugging him so much.
Yeah. But it's colder. So that the other reason why they team you up, like at Aconcagua, when you're up at the Camp 2 and Camp 3, when you're up above 20,000 feet, basically, they try to pair you up because it's warmer at night when you sleep with someone else in your tent. And then at that altitude, you don't really sleep anyways, right? So because you're kind of gasping for air and you don't sleep well. So it's nice to have someone there kind of to stay warm. But if you're at lower altitudes, having your own tent is wonderful.
What about food? Did you bring like bars for yourself or goose or anything like that? Because I think I'm definitely bringing. I don't know what the food's gonna be like, and I'm a very plain eater, as we talked about, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it'll depend on the guides that you hired, right? So so typically what they'll do is they'll have like a hot breakfast, and you'll have a hot dinner. and then they'll give you some snacks throughout the day. But what those snacks are kind of depends on
what the dinner is, you know.
Yeah, so like we didn't hire like a super luxurious guide, and I found this guy Francis, and Francis was amazing. He has his own company, but he was very good friends. I found him because he's a film and television guy too, so I found him because he could get us permits to film at Kilimanjaro. So he did the permits, and then he also had the company that took us up. So like in the morning, we would have this like beautiful like millet porridge, and then during the day, like we might have like a little sandwich or like some hard-boiled eggs, and then at night we would have like some pasta or like some chicken or something like this, or some tuna, canned tuna with pasta. Yeah,
That's what I eat on the Camino too, little canned tunas.
yeah. So that's really amazing. So, but yeah, usually you get a hot breakfast and then a hot dinner. But the other thing too is you can't leave at 4 a.m. by yourself.
No, well, I wouldn't. I have to. That's one thing I'm talking to myself about this trip, and it's you have to listen to the guide. Whatever he says, you do. If you're going to do 1 mile an hour, you're going to do 1 mile an hour.
Yeah.
If they, I know that I have.
Yeah. And being up at altitude is a lot different because you wake up in the morning, it's cold, and the sun might be up, but you might be in the shadows where your camp is. So you got to kind of wait for that sun to come around. And then once it warms up, everyone packs their tents and you eat, and the pace of life is much slower. Yeah. So that might get to you.
Until the night that you leave. I mean, the morning that you leave, because then everybody wakes up like at 11 and you're leaving by 12.
Yeah, but then you hike all night to get to the summit for sunrise. And then you come back down. So what happens is, yeah, you leave at like midnight or 2 a.m. You go all the way up in the dark, which is kind of fun. And then you get up to the top at sunrise, which is beautiful. And then you take all your pictures. And there's a false summit at Kilimanjaro too. There's this huge wall.
Yeah.
There's this huge wall that you have to climb. And when you get to the top of it, you're like, fuck, it's done. And then it's like, no, it's still another hour, which is fun. But yeah, it's not that much, but it's death. And then when you get up, you take all your photos, and then you go all the way back down to camp. You eat, you sleep for like 2-3 hours, and then you wake up, and then you go down even further. And because they don't want people staying at that base camp and getting altitude sickness or anything like that, even after you've come down. So yeah, and that day is the hardest because you don't sleep at night and you hike up, and then you make it to the summit. And then you come down, eat, sleep, and then you have to go down even further. And that day where you go down even further is insane. You drop like 10, 12,000 feet in one day. Like it's a 4,000 meter drop on. And actually that's what hurt me the most at Kili is the massive descent.
But you don't carry poles, do you?
I don't carry poles. Poles would be helpful, but also too, it's just like 4,000 meters of descent in one day is just a lot. But they really rush you. Once you summit, they really get...
You're out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, bye.
And it would be nice to kind of like go down a little slower and enjoy the descent. But no, they just want you like... And part of that is because they don't want people getting altitude sickness on the mountain. And there's quite a lot of people who are pretty touch and go on that last day.
Right.
And they just want to get you up and out. But that last descent is pretty rough.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
And then you have a party that night.
Yeah. So in Moshi, which is the town where you go up and down, like, yeah, if there's a group and you go with a group, they'll have like a dinner or something like that. We didn't have a group because we were filming and by ourselves. So we just kind of went up and came down and, well, we definitely had a few beers and relaxed. And we were in Moshi Moshi's not a nice town. Like, you'd think like, oh, it's Africa. It's like something nice. No, it's just kind of like a nothing town where it just happens to be near Kilimanjaro. Yeah. But you'll love it.
We'll see. Yeah, like I said, the only concern I have is the altitude sickness. But if I follow the guides, I take my Diamox, I think we'll find out.
So Diamox is interesting too, because what it does is it doesn't solve altitude sickness. It just masks it. And I've never taken it because I feel I'm better off feeling the altitude and knowing when I'm starting to feel like I'm going to get altitude sickness. I feel like I can manage myself better if I know what's going on. But some of my camera guys, like, they live on it.
I'm not going to go without it. When I did the JMT, I mean, and maybe it's a placebo.
Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah.
Whatever it is, I know that I have to start taking it 2 days before, and then I take it in the morning when I wake up, and then when I reach the summit. And so it's kind of like, I do want to get the name of your drink that you use.
Yeah, that it's not a drink; it's just powder. Yeah,
Powder
yeah.
I'm also going to try and buy a new pack. My pack is like 10 years old, and it's so heavy and out.
Well, the other great thing about Kilimanjaro is if you're going with porters and on a tour, you can bring a duffel bag, and then have a day bag, and that's what I did. So I had a duffel bag with my sleeping bag, my sleeping pad, change of clothes.
Okay, so you put all that.
Yeah, and at night when I would get to camp, and wet wipes. So when I would get to camp, I would use wet wipes. I would wipe down, and then I would change my clothes because it gets very cold at night. And then I would try to dry out some of my hiking stuff, and then I would have like a warmer jacket, a hat, and a shirt that I would sleep in, and I would change into that, and then I would have dinner, and then go to bed, and then wake up, and then pack all that stuff away, leave it with the porters, put on my day bag, which just basically had like a few energy bars and like 2-3 liters of water, and then I would go up.
You carried your windbreaker.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. A windbreaker, hat, gloves, sun hat, winter hat, a couple, maybe two different pairs of gloves. Cause yeah, it's very strange. Like you can get 4 seasons in a day on any mountain anywhere in the world. But Kilimanjaro is pretty good because it's right on the equator. So you don't get huge variations, but there's one day where you go up the Barranco wall, which is like, I don't know, it's like 2,000-3,000 feet almost straight up. And it's very gentle. There's switchbacks, and it's not too dangerous, but there's a huge weather change from the bottom of the Barranco wall to the top, because once you go up 2,000-3,000 feet, almost 1,000 meters, it's much colder up there. So that day is a day where you want to have an extra layer or two.
Did you have to use spikes when you went?
No. There's no snow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen some of the documentaries, but I don't know what time of year it was. So they definitely.
There's glaciers up there, and they're melting, and they're at the very, very top, and you see them when you go to the summit, but you never have to walk on actual snow. So you don't need Gaiters might be helpful because keeps your shoes clean and keeps your pants clean. And on the last day, actually, the ascent, there's a lot of sand. It's like very loose gravel up there, so maybe the Gaiters would be helpful, but you never have to walk on snow. Yeah. But you'll crush it. But again, the most dangerous thing, again, is the sun.
The sun and the altitude. But I'm not going to worry about the altitude. And I'll take care of myself with it.
Yeah.
I'll take care of myself.
Yeah. And just be zen about the altitude. Because I had one guy in my team, like he was always worried about altitude. And he would literally talk himself into being sick.
Oh, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
My big problem with everything is that I don't pay attention to signs of being sick, and then I push through. I'm one of those,
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep going.
But your eating habits are really good for the mountains because you eat light and you move. So, having big meals is terrible because then you have to digest it, and it takes up way too much energy to digest it, and then you're sluggish all day and you're miserable. So just many light, small snacks all through the day, and then a hot dinner, and then you're done.
And it'll be interesting going with the gal that I met once.
Yeah. Total stranger. Is it just the two of you, or is it a bigger group?
No. 5 or 7 of us and 3 guides or something.
And then you'll have like 10 porters who move all the tents and who cook all the food. It's a big team every day. Like if there's 3 guides, you're gonna have you're gonna have like probably 1 or 2 cooks, to cook assistants, and then there's guys that set up all the tents and everything. So it's a big production.
It'll be interesting, and we'll see if I have to sleep with her, I'll sleep with her. Although, typically what I do when I camp is I have a little cup and I have a pee cup. So I don't go out of my tent. I just pee in the tent. And so she'll have to.
Yeah. Get your own tent. That's safer. Much easier for everyone, I think. Yeah. No. But then again, now here you're going to do Kili.
Yes.
So before you were here a couple months ago, you were about to do the Camino de Santiago, and then now you're addicted, and now you're about to go to Kili, and I would tell you will get addicted to climbing if
I know. So here's my dilemma. I want to see how Kili goes first, and then I'm going to decide, do I want to do another long bike trip, or do I want to go to Nepal and do some...
The Annapurna trails?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah, all fun stuff. Yeah.
So it's going to depend on how I do, Achille, and then I'm going to make it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm a big believer in hiking, so I love exploring the world and I think it's a pretty safe way to do it. But you'll find it very interesting because there are trails. The funny thing is, once you go east, like once you go to Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, even parts of India, southern China, the size and the altitudes are just enormous. So you'll be at the top of Kili in a few weeks from now, and you'll be like, holy cow, 20,000, God willing. And you'll be at 20,000 feet, and you'll be like, holy cow, I'm on the top of the world. But then when you go to Nepal, you'll be sleeping at 20,000 feet, and you'll be surrounded by 28,000 foot peaks, and you're just like, holy shit, I'm nowhere, but I'm still at 20,000 feet. So it's a total different perspective.
And I'm excited about that. That's what I'm telling myself mentally. Let's see how you do here. And then it's going to determine what is your next adventure.
Yeah. You know what the toughest trek in the world is? It's called the Snowman Trek, and it's in Bhutan, and it's about 30 days. And there's 9 20,000 foot passes. Yeah. So for the whole 30 days, you're basically just going up and down these massive passes. And it's in northern Bhutan, right on the southern border of China. And it's basically in like just a no man's land. But they've got guides, and they've got yak and donkeys, and they put everything on, and you got to cook and everything, and you go out for 30 days. And it's supposed to be the toughest trek in the world. And I've been trying to film there for years. I was about to film there before COVID, and then COVID hit, and I really wanted to go back this year, and it's not going to happen. But I'm hoping next year I can make it work. It's incredibly expensive, but it's the toughest and probably the most stunning. And you're guaranteed not to see other people on the trail.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get a list. You're going to send me some of your stuff so I can look at that. And then I'm going to, like I said, I need to see, because there's these long distance bike trips that people are trying to talk me into. And I'm thinking, I want to see what happens with this first. Long bike trips are great. I love it. But I want to see what happens at Kili, especially after doing the Camino. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because you might fall in love with climbing mountains, right? Yeah. And when I say climbing mountains, I just mean walking up them, because most of the big mountains in the world are just walk-ups.
Yeah, I'm not doing any rock climbing.
No.
I mean,
but being out on the ice is quite fun. Like Aconcagua, for example, in Argentina, it's about 24,000 feet, 7,000 meters, and at base camp you're in this gravel patch, right? But then once you leave base camp, you're on ice, and you've got your crampons for your feet, and you've got your ice axe, and it becomes quite a fun journey. And again, the elements are the most dangerous thing, because the sun is now coming off of the snow, so you can get burned right on the bottom of your and on your chin. So you've got to like protect yourself from up top and from down below. But being out on the ice is quite spectacular too.
Yeah, I've never done anything like that. I've had to camp on snow a couple of times, but never climbing ice. And then Connie and I have gotten lost because you can't see the trail when there's snow.
Of course, yeah.
So it's like, okay, which one do we follow, these footprints or do we follow those?
Yeah. Which one will take you to salvation? Yeah. That's wild. So when is Kilimanjaro?
I'm leaving on August 15th.
Okay.
So I just got my visa, Tanzania visa. The doctor called me on the way here, so I am going to start getting my shots together. Mm-hmm. So right after I finished the Camino, I finished on the 26th. On the 27th would have been my son's 39th birthday. So we always get together with the family, just immediate family, and say a few words and throw flowers. So I wanted to make sure we were back for that. And then right from there, I had to get ready for the fundraiser we do for Children's Hospital every year. So I did that. Now I'm getting ready for this trip. So it's like all of these things are happening.
It sounds very full. Yeah. That's great. I mean, it's amazing that you've been able to bounce from trip to trip, with so much energy and positivity.
Too, I didn't have much time to let the Camino really sink in because I mean, kind of. I talked to not that many people about my experience that I had, like, with you, with these people that I met. And how did I happen upon those 3 people that we have this connection together? Because I have to focus on this trip.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, it's a lot, isn't it?
It is. But I'm already trying to figure out what's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the bug. It's every few months you're going to need to do something epic. Yeah. There's a lot out there, though. There's a lot out there.
So we'll have to see. We'll have to see where this takes me. This will be a deciding factor, this trip.
You want to know another great trip to do?
What?
There's a trail in Papua New Guinea called the Kokoda Trail, and no one outside of Australia knows about it. So Australians know about it because Australian soldiers traveled to Papua New Guinea to push back the Japanese during World War II. And they pushed them back using this trail that the Japanese were trying to come south on, and they were pushing the Japanese north away from Australia. And the Japanese wanted to take Papua New Guinea so they could make it an Air Force base so they could start attacking Australia. So this was like a key moment in the war for Australia. And these Australian kids, they went there and they pushed back the Japanese and got them off of Papua New Guinea. And this Kokoda Trail is about 100 miles through rainforest. And it's got almost 25,000 feet, almost 7,000, 8,000 meters of elevation throughout this 12-day journey. And it's easily one of the toughest treks I've ever done in my life. It's hot. You're in a rainforest. It's raining 4 or 5 times a day. You're in mud. You're going up massive, like mud trails, and it's very physical. But it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done.
So is it always like that every time of year, or did you go at the better time of year, or?
So there's a dry season and a wet season. I think we had planned to go there when it was less busy, because a lot of Australians will go there and do this as like a rite of passage. You'll have like an entire rugby team, sign up to do the Kokoda, and then they'll go together and do it. And a lot of school clubs will have like one trip a year where they'll do the Kokoda. And people get helicoptered out. Like, not everyone makes it, but it's really quite spectacular. And there are little memorials along the trail. We filmed it there too. We made a whole story about this. But there are memorials there along, dedicated to the Australian soldiers that pushed back the Japanese and stuff like that. And it's kind of like walking through that history is quite spiritual and quite powerful. So it's a good hike, very physical, but it has a great story. Yeah. You just have to follow all my TV shows. Yeah.
Watching them all, it was really cool. I need to, I'll have to look at the other one, but mainly the ones that now are coming close to me, I need to look at.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send you the Kilimanjaro episode. I'll send you the Uganda one with the gorillas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know if you did the one in Nepal, that one, I'm not sure.
I filmed in Nepal. I did this beautiful trek through the Mustang Kingdom, so I wanted to do the Annapurna, but it was a little bit too common and it's way too busy. There's a lot of tourists and it's a little bit too, I wouldn't say it's uninteresting, but it's too well known. So I found this other part of Nepal, in the central part of Nepal, right up near the Tibetan border with where China is. And it's called the Mustang Kingdom. And you can do a beautiful hike up there. It's a little bit higher altitude, and it's more of a desert, but you're surrounded by snow-capped peaks. And this part of Nepal is really remote, so it's a little bit harder to get to. But the history up there is quite spectacular. So, the Annapurna Trail is great. You might be on the trail with a whole bunch of 20-year-olds. But if you go to the Mustang Kingdom, it's a little bit more remote. You have to pay a little bit of an extra fee to get up there because they try to limit the amount of tourists that go. But you're really out in the wild, so it can be quite nice as well.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, everything's going to kind of hinge on how this whole thing goes.
Yeah. Once you start feeling comfortable at altitude, it's going to open up a whole another range of exploring. Yeah. You're on the cusp of it. How high were you what was the highest altitude you reached on the Camino?
I don't even know where. On the, I don't really know. It didn't feel high to me at all. But when I was hiking through, what is it called? The Appalachia?
Mm-hmm.
And people were saying, oh, we were in altitude. It was like 7,000 feet. I'm like, oh, this is altitude.
2,000 meters.
I guess people, it's all relative to where you come from.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that high. I'm not even sure. Maybe 4,000 or 5,000 at the most.
Have you climbed Mount Whitney?
Yeah, I've done that 3 times. times. And that's, I believe, is 14,500. And I've also, every year I try to go back to Langley, which is beautiful. If you ever want to go, it's like 14,200 feet. It's just under Whitney, but it's way easier to get to, meaning that...
Is that Colorado?
No, it's right here. It's right, you go to Lone Pine, and it's just before Whitney.
Oh.
So you camp at Horseshoe Meadows the night before, which is 10,000 feet elevation, I think. 8 or 10. I think it's 10. And then you hike into Cottonwood Lakes, and we spend the night at Cottonwood Lakes, and then we just do a day hike up to Langley, come back down, spend the night, and then hike out the next day. And I usually do that every summer.
That's beautiful.
And I think the views are actually prettier than Whitney, but Whitney's more well-known because it is the highest peak.
Yeah. I really want to do Whitney in the winter and do the mountaineer route right up the front face. Yeah.
I do that.
That looks fun.
Yeah, good for you.
I have a goal, actually. I just came up with this a couple weeks ago, and I want to run this by you. While I'm living in the United States, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but I'll be here for a while. While I'm here, I want to climb the highest 10 peaks in the lower 48. Yeah. So there's one in Arizona, there's one in Colorado, there's one in Washington State, there's one in Montana, there's one in Wyoming, there's Whitney here, which is the highest. But they're all over the United States. I was like, what a great way to explore the country.
What I would suggest to you, if and when you climb Whitney, don't go up the regular, even if you don't do the mountaineering, let's say you say, I can't get a permit to do the mountaineering, whatever it is, do through Horseshoe Meadows, which is the back way. So it's Guitar Lake. So you'd have to camp at Guitar Lake and take the back way. I think it's prettier.
Really?
Yes. And what you do is you end up leaving. You can either go back down to Guitar Lake, but what I would do is go through Horseshoe Meadows, you camp at Guitar Lake, then you take your gear with you. You can leave like at 2 a.m. There's a spot where you drop off your gear and just take a day pack up to the summit and then come back down. You can go down the regular way if you want. So you probably need 2 cars or hitch a ride. I picked up many hitchhikers going back and forth to the different campgrounds.
Sounds fantastic.
But it is a lot prettier that way, I think. Also, I don't know if you've done the Grand Canyon or not.
I have not.
So I've done it 3 times. And the first time I did it, I took a shuttle from the south end to the north end, spent the night, and ran across this way. And then twice I've done it where I started on the south end, ran across, spent the night, and then ran back the next day. But it is just...
But what's the... What? I mean, are you going right down and then right back up the other side?
Yes.
That's nasty. Yeah.
But the views are incredible. It really is incredible. And I think the North Rim is much prettier. If you can spend the night there, you can either camp, there's a campground, or there's a place to rent a cabin there. You can do that. But it really is.
No, that sounds amazing. Need to try that out. You know what I am doing in December, though? We just booked it in, is we're going to walk across Death Valley.
Okay, I crewed somebody who did the Badwater race across from Death.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. How far is that? Okay.
So, I did it once as a crew member and then once as a crew chief.
Okay. I think we're going to do so we have an outfitter, right? And it's great. So he's going to set up camp every night for us. So what we do is we'll do like 20 miles each day. I think it's 220 miles from north to south. So we're gonna do about 20 miles a day, and then pull into camp, and then he'll have some food and a tent.
So are you starting at Badwater? Because that's the lowest point.
Is it the northern gate? We're gonna start at the north gate and finish at the south gate, and go right through the middle of it.
Is that? I don't know. All I know is like you go down the 390, you make a right to Death Valley, and then if you go the farthest point, that's Badwater.
Okay.
And then the Badwater race, it starts in Badwater, and then you run all the way up through the mountains, and then you go up the 390, and you go Whitney Portal Road, and it stops right at the trailhead of Whitney Portal Road. Yeah, it's quite something.
Yeah, that must be beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, you can bike it too. She had to do it. Anybody who does it has to do it within a certain amount of time. I can't remember. They have 3 days to do it. I don't remember what the time was that you have to do it. I know. stressful because you can sleep on the side of the road, but then you have to get up and you have to keep moving. I don't know. But yours sounds like it's...
Yeah, I'm just going to go with some friends.
What time of year? It's like 128 degrees there right now, or 34 or something ridiculous.
December. We'll do it in December. But the days will be short. So we'll start in the dark in the morning, headlamps, try to break through by noon, get most of it done by...
You're going to do 20 miles a day?
20 miles.
And this is going to be walking?
Yeah, we don't run. Yeah, we're just going to go out and have a bit of fun.
Pipe wells, I remember that. We're going over Stovepipe. There's a lot of climbing there.
Yeah, it's very vertical. Yeah. Yeah. Should be great. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. There's something special about the desert.
Yes, there is. That whole area. I mean, if you get a chance, you should, not much farther is Lone Pine. And actually, after you do that, you should drive up Whitney Portal Road, and you can just check out the whole Whitney area there while you're there.
Yeah, so I can figure it out.
Yes, They have a great campsite there. That's where I take my grandson.
Yeah. The funny thing about Whitney is if you want to do Whitney in the summertime, you need a permit, right? But in the winter, you don't need a permit. So, yeah, no one's crazy enough.
It's after November something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it should be fun.
So you have to look at the Grand Canyon, Mount Whitney, and Mount Langley is great.
Okay. And I'll send you the Uganda episodes, the Tanzania episodes, and even the Papua New Guinea one, which you might like. Yeah. So we're just going to have these podcasts every couple months and just share travel ideas. Yeah. Not bad. Well, look, I mean, definitely come back when you're done Kili and let me know how it went. Yeah. Just
I'll text you though when I'm done. If I make it to the top, I'll let you know.
That'd be great. Yeah. Just go slow. And you know what? The porters won't let you go fast. You know what they say is slowly, slowly, poli, poli. Like that's, yeah. So they won't let you go fast. They really manage it well. I'm
just wondering, how do you walk 1 mile an hour? I don't understand. Do you like take a step?
No, I think it's they get you to find a really slow, comfortable rhythm, and for you as a runner, it's gonna maybe be a challenge to slow down and
not fast.
Yeah. So, but the altitude does take you.
I'm definitely gonna listen. So, one quick short story: when we were in Porto, and this is after like maybe 1 or 2 days full antibiotics, and I was still very not doing well. We went on these e-bike, right? So again, no permits. They just take you, take you on these rides and adventures in and out of people. The guy in the front is holding a 1 finger, 2 finger, whatever. Go to the easiest one, go to the harder one. And you have these people on this ride. There's like 10 other people who don't know what the hell they're doing on a bike.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it wonderful being in a country that's not run by lawyers?
Yes, it really was. It was.
No waivers. Yeah.
And so I saw this woman. I thought, this lady is dangerous. I am not going near her. So the guide is up front. There's like 7 riders. I'm in the very back, staying my distance because I don't want to get hit by anybody. Nobody's saying slow down, right, left, whatever, Mm-hmm. And so everybody stops. He comes back to get me. He goes, what's going on? I said, I'm not going near these riders. And I said, I don't trust them. And he said, okay, what about if you stay right behind me? I said, okay, that's fine. As long as you let me know when you're going to stop and when you're going to turn. And he said, okay. So I followed him up to the front.
And that was it. You kept all the crazy people behind you. Yeah. Safest place for them. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about from the trips, or anything else you wanted to mention? Or
I don't think so. I think that's it. Once I finish Kilimanjaro, God willing, I make it to the top. I've already started my new book, and that will be the end of it, I hope. Mm-hmm. And it's all about some of my adventures, not all of my adventures, but the ones that stick out. And so hopefully that'll be done next year sometime, but we'll talk before.
Yeah, I would love to get you back in here in September when you've come back from the Kili trip. That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
And my list of trips are getting longer now.
It has to. The world is too amazing, and the best way to see it is these long distance hikes. I love it.
And the best time to do the Grand Canyon I found is October.
Okay, not bad. Before it gets too cold. Okay.
Really nice at the bottom, so.
October, I'll definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, the planning begins now. Yes, there you go. Okay, so we can go back here and shake it out. And thank you for coming the second time.
My pleasure.
Wonderful to see you again.
Yes, you too.